scratch an itch. Yeah, build something build something or create something or whatever it is that you're intimately familiar with, that has been a real problem for you in real life, because you're going to, the closer you are to the problem, the easier it is going to solve it in a way that other people are going to understand, the people that are experiencing the same problem. And I'm going to give you two. Be persistent. Sure. Be persistent.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the CEO and founder of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Darin Haener. And Darin is currently in a business that's very much a side hustle, but I'm sure someday he hopes is going to be a full-time gig. But backing up now, and that's just as a teaser, he's in the kind of the professional brewing and software engineering, which is just a kind of an interesting or fascinating area. Backing up a bit, Darin started coding in 6th grade and took a class in high school, went on to college and went to a semester, decided it wasn't for him, dropped out, went to work for a brewery, started his own brewery, I think for about 10 years, and realized, and he can correct me wherever I'm wrong, but so we had realized brewery wasn't necessarily the place where you make money, did a bit of a change in careers and went into software engineering to do that. Went to a boot camp, did that for a period of time, and decided to go be a professional, and decided that to do a bit of coding, and then kind of weaved in and out, set out to build some software with breweries to do that. Spent a year building it, recruiting and doing that. Had a fun time and learning a lot along the way, and has continued to do that for a side hustle for a period of time, and continues to work on that alongside of his other full-time job, which is software engineering. So with that much as introduction, and hopefully I mostly got it right, if not all right, welcome on the podcast, Darin.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Devin. Yeah, that was pretty accurate. I actually never did realize the dream of owning my own brewery, though, unfortunately.
Okay. Maybe it was you started working in a brewery, or did I just completely make that up?
Yeah. No. That's I did work for breweries for 10 years.
Okay, that's what it was. I was thinking I had it there 10 years in a brewery, and then apparently I just filled in the gap, but in my own mind instead of what actually happened. So
that's what our brains do.
So I gave kind of the brief or quick introduction, but now take us back a little bit in 6th grade in high school and kind of initially getting into software programming, and tell us a bit about your journey.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it started, like you said, in 6th grade. I'll date myself a little bit with this. My dad bought a computer for the family when I was in 6th grade. It was an IBM PS2. So, that was in 1988. Laptops didn't exist. It was this thing didn't even have a hard drive. That's how old. And you had to insert floppy disks that held like, I don't even remember, not even a megabyte on each disk. It was crazy.
But it's also crazy how much the computers did for how little memory. Like they were pretty good programmers back then. Because I remember dating myself along with you. I remember even just playing little games, and you'd play a game and you get part of the way through the game, and you'd have to swap out the disc because the next disc had the next part of the game, and it was fun. And then eventually it moved to CD-ROMs, but even then you had to do multiple CD-ROMs for games. So how far we've come, but didn't mean to interrupt your journey.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, kudos to the programmers back then, because you had to plan for that, right? Like, to plan for removing the disk and removing part of your access to code that you can run, and exactly. Loading up a new chunk and to keep everything you need for the second half. And yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
I agree.
Yeah,
so now you got into coding nonetheless, or your dad got the family computer, got into coding, got into it a bit more in high school, and then or what happened from high school?
Yeah, so I mean, high school, happened. High school and friends and having fun
Hmm.
became a little more interesting. I finished all of the coding classes that I could take at my high school by the time I was a sophomore. And so after that, I was done with that, I kind of just like forgot about it, and moved on to having fun in high school, and then having fun when I left high school, and just not being interested in college. So I just decided to go out into the workforce at that point, and had essentially just completely forgotten about my little stint with programming and loving it. Uh, but that did lead me to becoming a brewer. Uh, I was working in the restaurant industry and got myself onto disability, and by breaking my arm, had a cast all the way up to my shoulder, and there was a home brew shop down the street from where I lived, and so I thought, well, that seems like an interesting thing to do. So let's give that a shot, and I immediately fell in love with it. And even at that point, tried to write software for it because there was so many minor details that you have to track and pay attention to make the beer the same over and over again. And so I had access to Visual Basic, right? So I jumped up a level to Visual Basic from regular Basic, and even tried coding a solution for it then. And that would have been like 1999. Which never really panned out. I just, was more interested in making and drinking the beer than doing the coding at that point.
Hey, but it was a fun kind of side passion, side hobby. So you were working at that point, I think, you're full time at the brewery, and then this was kind of a, hey, what if, or kind of, hey, can we automate things, make things better, and use software to improve it? Is that about right?
No, not yet. I was home brewing
Okay.
at that time.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so I was trying to like help myself out as a home brewer.
Ah.
And so I hatched this plan to get a job working in the daytime at the only brew pub in town, so that I could have overlapping hours with the brewer, and maybe get him to hire me, which is what ended up happening. It actually worked. it took almost 2 years, but I got him to hire me, probably out of just frustration. He probably just wanted me to shut up at that point. But yeah, so they got into beer, and I spent a decade brewing beer, which I loved. It's fantastic. But like you pointed out, like you touched on in my introduction, doesn't pay a lot of money. And I had had my first child, and we were looking at having our second, and I was like, I can't, like, this just isn't going to work on my salary. I need something different. And so that's when I got into software.
Now, how did you, just as a curiosity, so working at the brewery, you did get, after 2 years, you got into brewery, said, okay, this will be a fun job, which I'm guessing it probably was a fun job, but to your point, doesn't pay it or pay the bills as well as you need it to. So you say, okay, got a wife, got a kids, got to support them, and what else can I do type of a thing. Now, how did you land back on software? I get you were doing it when you're younger and a bit in high school, but how did you, that was a decent amount of time prior to making the transition. So what made you land back on software?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, I always continued to play with it here and there. I mean, even in my last days in a brewery, uh, was when I really started feeling the pain of not having software to handle everything that was going on. I was managing multiple breweries, and I couldn't focus on making beer anymore. All I did was paperwork, and I was like, why isn't there software for this? And so I kind of jumped back in and was trying to build something with like a Microsoft Access database, and just anything. And it was always interesting to me, right? I'd go home and I'd do it, and my wife, what are you doing?
I'm making brewery automated. It's gonna change the world.
Yeah, right. And so that kind of passion for writing software never really left me. I just kind of forget about it, like if you play the guitar or something, you you're passionate about it for a while, and you forget about it for like 2 years, and you pick it back up again, and kind of one of those. It was one of those things for a while. But then when I was really needing more income, uh, I did some soul searching. And was like, what am I passionate about? Because I did go back to school for a little while, and I was on track for mechanical engineering. And I did 2 years. And one of the best things that ever happened to me was the first engineering class I took. They had me go out and find a local mechanical engineer and interview him as part of the class. And after that interview, I realized I don't want to be a mechanical engineer.
Hey, you realize this too. I got to the end of electrical engineering, and that's where I did my undergraduate in. And I said, I like engineering, but I really don't want to be an engineer. So I'm like, well, what else can I do? And I'm like, well, I like law, and I think intellectual property and patents are cool, and I like like entrepreneurship. So then I went off and got an MBA and a law degree. But I kind of came to the same conclusion. Well, I kind of find it interesting, but I don't want to be an engineer. So we came to the same conclusion. You just were smart enough to do it earlier than I was.
Oh, well, that was on the professor. Like, I'm so grateful for her doing that. Because it made me realize, like, this is not what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. It's interesting. It's very interesting, but I don't want this to be my day-to-day job. Yeah. I don't want to be designing HVAC systems. This is essentially what it was. For the most part, unless you move to like Michigan and get a job, most of the jobs were in like industrial HVAC. Which was not that interesting to me. So I left that, and then, like I said, I had to do some soul searching, and it really it didn't take long before I realized, okay, I know I love coding. I know I love it, and this was in 2013. And so like coding boot camps are just kind of getting started at that point, and they were just starting to become a thing, and we had a local one. And it was a bit of a different setup where it wasn't this whole like course that you graduated from, right? You could say like, I want to take a Ruby on Rails class, and I'm like, okay, we'll give you, it's like a 6-week class, 2 nights a week, 4 hours a night, take Ruby on Rails. But what we're going to do, the instructor is going to be someone from a local company that is looking for a Ruby on Rails engineer. And if they like any of you, they have the option to hire one of you out of the class. Win for the student and win for the company, because they get to hire a cheap junior developer that just is hungry to get a job, and get their foot in the door.
Right.
And so that's how I got into software. I did end up getting hired out of the second class that I took. And the rest is kind of history at that point.
Oh, cool. So now you take the software, you do the boot camp, before boot camps were cool, but you go through the software, kind of get a refresher, get an update, get new training, go through all of that. And then as you're coming out of the software, out of doing the software boot camp, how did you go, and you get the job? How did you was the software, the brewing software kind of always kind of chugging along in the background and kind of moving forward, or kind of is that re-engaged, or kind of what level of, because you can have side hustles that are basically a second full-time job that you're working as many or more hours because you're passionate and that's what you want to do. And then you'll have some side hustles you're saying, man, by the time I work a 10-hour day in software programming, I'm wiped, and you don't get around to as much. So kind of give us an idea of, how did the side hustle kind of fit into all that?
Yeah, well, I will say about 6-8 months into my career, into my very young coding career, that brewery software idea resurfaced, and I started researching it, and it turns out there weren't a lot of great solutions. And so I just thought, I didn't put any thought into it. I just like, okay, I'm just gonna build this thing. Like, I don't know how to start a company. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna write this software, and we'll see what happens, And so, yeah, it was very much high passion, not quite two full 8-hour days, but a lot of hours up front in the beginning, a lot of hours, because I started with nothing, and I had to build this whole platform from nothing. And so that took a long time. It took a year, really, of side hustling it, a lot of hours to get to a point where I had something that even just kind of worked, and I realized early on, after I started letting some breweries get on board and for free and just beta test it, I realized early on that there was no way I was going to do this by myself. 'Cause it took so much of my time just to get it up and going. And now I have people using it and telling me what they want and telling me what's missing. I can't even keep up with bugs at this point.
I can't even keep up with what I envision, let alone adding 20 new features and things that you guys have envisioned. No, I completely get that.
Yeah. So, I was lucky enough in my local Ruby meetup group, right? We had a local Ruby programmers meetup group. I was lucky enough to have met a guy that was a much better engineer than a software engineer than I was. It was also a home brewer. And I tricked him into becoming my co-founder, basically, and taking some of that load off of me, which has been fantastic. And so that's when it kind of started to slow down and become a little more calm, because there were two of us working on it. He was making better decisions on the engineering side than I ever could. And I was able to kind of focus on talking to brewers and getting our name out there and doing some marketing and some sales. And so we started to pick up some traction at that point. We got our first 10 breweries, I think, in the first year, which was kind of a slog, but I will say brewers are not always the best technologists, so it's kind of hard sometimes to convince them.
And interesting is, as much as you would think, even with an intellectual property, but law field in general, it's the same way. It's like, well, they've been doing it the same way for a long period of time, and it's very slow to change, because you don't want to have to, if you have people that have been doing it a long time, they're running the businesses, and then by the time the next people take over, goes down the chain of command, so to speak, it's a super slow moving thing. And so you think, oh, we've got all this great technology that can make it so much better and make better product and better service and make your life easier, and it's still just slow to adopt. So I definitely get where you're coming from. So now, as we kind of fast forward a bit to today, so you've been doing kind of the same thing. You've been doing the software programming and doing that as a full-time gig, and you've also been doing, you found a co-founder, helped to offset some things, or a partner, and offset some of the workload, and now you're looking to kind of do that. You're kind of now looking a bit forward looking, 12 months in the future. Where do you see things headed? Is it goal to, hey, make this a full-time gig? Full goal is to, hey, we're going to run these in parallel and I'll have 2 full-time jobs, or keep this as a side hustle until it starts to make money? Or kind of where do you see things headed?
Yeah, for me, we're very happy right now with where things at. We've kind of settled ourselves into a groove where we can work on it 6 to 10 hours a week. Honestly, it's not very much, but we get feature shipped, and we're on a very slow growth curve, which is, again, absolutely fine with us. We're not looking to leave our full-time jobs in the next 6 months.
Sure.
Maybe another 5 years at our current pace, and sure, not killing ourselves to improve this product, just kind of sitting in this groove that we found that we're very happy and comfortable doing. Maybe in 5 years we'll be able to 5 to 10, we'll be able to retire and just let it retire to our side gig, and keep that 5 to 10 hours a week going, and maybe go brew some beer, but we don't have any lofty goals of trying to make this a multi-million-dollar company. We would be extremely happy just to slowly grow it at a pace we're comfortable with, until it can pay bills. Hopefully it'll still be relevant, at that time. But I think what I've noticed is we have much better luck with newer breweries who don't have anything in place yet. And interestingly enough, a lot of software engineers quit their jobs to become brewers.
Interesting.
It's a
Didn't realize that.
very common thread. So we have a lot of luck with them as well.
Maybe it's a software engineering that drives them to drinking, and then they said, "Well, if I'm going to drink, I might as well get into brewing, so that I can have my own drinks."
Right, that's right. So I don't see the market,
and that coming from a career field where lawyers are one of the top alcohol problems of any profession. So at least I can speak with, hey, I come from a profession that I can poke fun of just a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't see the brewery industry slowing down, even in the next decade or two. And a lot of them are starting very small. You see these breweries that are like in an industrial park. They roll up a garage door and they've got a little tasting bar in there, right? They've like bootstrapped the crap out of this thing. It's like a little Franken system. They got a couple of small things, but they still have tracking needs. They still have to pay taxes, just like the big guys do. So the software is still relevant for them, and it's actually really geared towards those guys. So, and that size. So, I feel like in the next decade we're gonna continue to see nice slow growth, and
cool.
Hopefully we'll get where we want to be.
So now that we've kind of caught up to your journey and we've looked a bit into the future, I always ask 2 questions towards the end of each podcast. So we'll jump to those now for a bit. The first question I'll ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So this is more of an engineering decision, but it really affected the business in a big way. I am the kind of software engineer. I'm getting better, admittedly, but I'm like I don't know. It was the movie Up. You see the dog talking. You could hear the dog talking. Squirrel, and it runs to this. Every so easily distractible, right? Like anytime I see a new shiny like software thing, like I want to try it, right? And so this, the front of the product looks nice, but under the covers, it's a nightmare. Because for like the first year and a half, I didn't have my partner who was there to like rein me in and make me not look at the shiny things. So I accumulated a massive amount of tech debt, what we call tech debt. And so it has really slowed down feature development. So, that's the biggest mistake I've made, is not understanding MVP and not choosing the simplest path. I was running for the yellow brick road, right? And so that was the biggest thing. And so now we're still digging ourselves out of that hole, and we have a goal by the end of this year to have all of that cleaned up. And that's actually my job. As my partner has given to me since I got us in this hole. So yeah, that like really spend a lot of time nailing down MVP and stick to that, and only build things in the easiest way that's going to bring you business value.
No, and definitely, and that's an easy one to a little bit of the squirrels, and those things. Is there's so many fun, especially if you're kind of an entrepreneurial bent and have that kind of creative or innovative mind. There's so many fun things to explore, and so many things you could do, and so many things that would be awesome. And so too often you try and kind of get distracted because there are all so many cool features that you could do without first building that initial core function and software and that programming that allows you to build on it while also having that foundation to start selling and getting product and getting revenue. So I definitely think it's one of those where if you have creative and you never want to stop and innovating and coming up the ideas, and that is a fun thing, and yet to keep that focus is one that's always a balance. So definitely makes sense. If we were to now jump to the second question, which is, if you're talking now to somebody that's just getting into a startup or small business, and it could be a full-time gig or it could be a side hustle, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
So scratch an itch. Yeah, build something or create something or whatever it is that you're intimately familiar with, that has been a real problem for you in real life, because you're going to, the closer you are to the problem, the easier it is going to solve it in a way that other people are going to understand, the people that are experiencing the same problem. And I'm going to give you two. Be persistent. Sure. Be persistent. You know, don't give up on your idea, because it could be like the next 2 months that things start changing. You start seeing a positive growth. So, you know, if it's something you're scratching an itch and you truly love and believe in, just see it out, see it through.
No, I think I think that finding something, and I would phrase it slightly different, but I think in the same vein, is find something you're passionate about that you can also make money off of, right? Or that has a place in the marketplace, in the sense that you always hear, follow your passion, which is definitely something you should do. If you don't enjoy it, especially if it starts out as a side hustle, small business, even if it becomes a, full-time gig, you're going to have to, there's a lot of up and downs. And if you don't find it exciting and you're not passionate about it, it's going to be difficult to stick with it over a long period of time. So finding something that's passionate, but you can be passionate about, I can be as passionate as I want about basketball. I'm very unlikely to be able to go play in the NBA or to be able to do that, but you can also find things that are related to that do allow for that passion, that excitement that people will also pay for. So I think that finding that something that you're passionate about, that you're excited about, scratching that edge, and then finding a way to make that a business, whether it's a side hustle and a little extra income, whether it's a full-time gig, whatever you're looking for, I think is definitely a great piece of advice. Well, people, if they're in brewing and they're excited about what they hear and they want to collaborate, they want to check it out, they want to be your next partner in your business, they want to be a client, a customer, an employee, an intern, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to connect up to you and find out more?
They can just you can check out the website at getfermentable.com, and you can email me directly, Darin, Darin, at getfermentable.com, and ask me anything you want.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, find out more, and connect up. Well, appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and would like to be a guest on the podcast, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com and sign up to apply to be on the podcast. Also, a couple more things if you're listeners. One, click subscribe in your podcast player so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And two, leave us a review so new people can find out about us. Last but not least, if you ever have any questions about patents or trademarks or anything else, reach out to us at Miller IP Law. Just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Thank you again, Darin. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks for having me, Devin. I had a good time.